Welcome to the show, everyone. It's the Crypto Lark bringing you a special report from the waterfront here in Wellington with Wong of NEM and now of ProximaX. Lon, welcome.
Hi, yeah, thank you.
Great to have you here. Now, I think the first question we want to talk about is, you've left your role as the president of the NEM Foundation. Why?
Yeah, this is a pretty difficult decision actually, because NEM has always been next to me in my heart, and I was the only one that was working with it full time right from the onset. And having to leave NEM obviously is a very emotional thing, but I think for the greater good of the NEM ecosystem, to lead another initiative, a project of magnitude that is potentially larger than NEM itself, makes me think twice that I have to make a strong decision to leave NEM or not. And so I've decided that to move forward for the greater good of the NEM ecosystem, being in ProximaX basically gives the potential of NEM being unearthed as a great technology is much more than just having to continue with NEM. And NEM itself is in free motion today because it has been set up for almost 4 years. Yeah, there's a huge community, and I think hopefully with good leadership, NEM would be able to continue to exist as an important contribution to the blockchain industry.
Well, that's the whole idea, right? You've built an open source project that anyone can come and build on, and actually stepping away from NEM shows the health of NEM, that it's not dependent on you as a personality to continue pushing it forward, that it can survive on its own, that it is its own ecosystem. And I find that really encouraging. Now, I want to talk specifically, you're here in New Zealand. Welcome to New Zealand, by the way, but why? Yeah. What are you doing here?
Yeah, this is very interesting because New Zealand, even when I was at NEM, was always a place that I thought would be a good-sized country to adopt a blockchain technology. And just recently, there have been a lot of activities from NEM, stretching from Australia, originating out of Australia into New Zealand, and that's where there's been a strong groundswell especially in the regional New Zealand, where people are more ready to adopt the technology. And that's when I thought maybe and since on the invitation of Benjamin from Cerebral Fix to come to Westport to actually look at the possibility of working with them together with NEM as a huge initiative in the South Island, and that's how I was drawn into coming here. And it's a nice place. Yeah,
it is a nice place.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
This is true. Well, I was very surprised that it was going to be Westport, because I saw this announcement the other day and I thought, okay, it's going to be Christchurch, maybe it's going to be Wellington, but actually Westport's a rather small town on the South Island on the West Coast. And it's so interesting to have chosen a small town, actually, because there's a lot of people there. They're, engineers and software developers and all these things. And there's that community there who believes in NEM. And I think it's such a cool thing to actually bring it to a small town in a small country, too.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, one of the reasons is Benjamin, he works out of Westport. And he put up an accelerator, incubator program in there, and has invited NEM and has invited me as well to be part of the game. And looking at the size of Westport, which is, the township itself is about 4,000 people population-wise, and the greater Westport is probably another 14,000, 15,000. So add together, you have about 20,000. And I think in any a test bed, not that NEM is a test bed. I still strongly believe that NEM is a production solution as far as the blockchain is concerned. But in rolling out anything that could scale into a massive, huge adoption around the world, I think the best place to start is a population like Westport and the surrounding areas. So
that's pretty cool.
I think it's good, yeah.
Well, NEM has been very active in New Zealand recently as well, which is obviously I'm excited about, being a NEM fan and of course a fan in New Zealand, but there's a lot of really interesting projects that have been coming out here recently. We have Choice to Pay, which is a NEM-based solution for basically replacing card payments and letting your fee that otherwise would have gone to Visa or MasterCard going to your charity of choice. We have a company called Yellowbird, which is looking to utilize the NEM blockchain to help with the supply chain tracking of clothing, which is really cool. And we have a project I've just mentioned today as well, which is Mana, and they're basically looking on how they can help empower the Maori and Pacifica community here in New Zealand to start looking at how we can bring blockchain to empower communities. So there's a lot going on here, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's many more projects. Those are just some of the more interesting ones.
Yes.
Now, I want to switch gears here a little bit. Catapult on NEM.
Yeah.
What's the feedback been on Catapult? How is it going in terms of the developers, and what's their response been to it?
Okay, and as far as the private blockchain is concerned, it's been released, it's been working, and it's being tested by communities. But you know, as in any project that doesn't require massive community participation, right? Such as a private blockchain. There are obviously less people working on it, more so than if it's a public chain where people would want to transact on it, and especially with cryptocurrencies, where people move cryptocurrencies around, move to the exchanges, move between parties. But that's where the public chain is well oiled, in the sense, well tested. But the private side of things, which is what Catapult has been released for its first version, it's being tested. I mean, it's being tested by ProximaX. We don't find any problems with it, and we find that I personally myself have tested on some of its capabilities, like the aggregate transaction, which is a well designed and well executed piece of software on the blockchain. So these are the things where NEM stands above. And the Catapult stands above the rest of the industry in as far as moving forward is concerned, and as far as how the utility of this solution can be made popular and used by a lot of people in a lot of circumstances. So Catapult Private is out there. The public version is due, well, when I was still in NEM as the president, back in April, it was due to be released in the first quarter of this 2019. So, and I am eagerly awaiting how this could be rolled out, and how we could actually shift gear into a new paradigm in as far as how Catapult is being utilized.
Fantastic. I know it's a big development for NEM in terms of really scalability, and we see how many projects are being built across NEM, and it's going to need that scalability here in the near future. Now, I want to switch up a little bit again, and we have to talk about ProximaX, because remember when I first heard about ProximaX, I thought, okay, Lon Wong's leaving NEM, like, oh my God, why? And then it's because he's going over to this other project, ProximaX, to help build out the ecosystem. Oh, really interesting. So tell us a little bit, what is ProximaX?
Well, you know how traditionally, and how we would actually look at blockchain as a platform where we can actually do value transaction among parties, right? So, but in the instance of where we need to have data transaction among parties, is where it is it's a vacuum, it's a hole. And in my years, in my 4 years working on NEM, I have come across a lot of companies in industries at large, outside the financial industry, and most of them are. And the good thing about it is that most of them are not regulated, and therefore they're more eager to actually make use of some sort of blockchain technology to drive their businesses. Right? And some of this could include things like the medical health records, land registry, key KYC, identity management, notarization of documents, traceability, and a host of things where traditionally we would make use of some sort of storage coupled with some sort of an application, so that all these things can work as a holistic program for for much of the industries at large. So that's where I've been at the back of my mind that we needed something like that, and we needed something fast so that we could actually make use of the NEM blockchain technology as a cryptography. With its cryptographic capabilities, and couple it with the distributed file management system and put them together. It's basically, ProximaX is basically an agglomeration of technologies that have been proven to work. And what we have actually done is to create this platform and then to create a service layer above it and allow developers to develop dApps on top of it using some sort of library like or SDKs to actually tap the technology that that NEM has, as well as distributed file management system has, together as one platform. And that's what ProximaX is all about. Basically putting together a distributed file management system, adding on the NEM blockchain, and what we will do beginning of next year is to include things like video messaging, as well as something like chat messaging as well, and to just horizontally expand the various core components that will make it a holistic platform of sorts, so that we can actually now bring it to the next level again, into a new paradigm.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so we just had a fire truck go by, so a little pause there. We're going to get back into this. Now, why has blockchain been having such a hard time with things like content delivery networks and file storage?
One of the biggest challenges of blockchain, obviously, is the fact that you can't really store massive data on the blockchain, because already with just value transactions you get things like a huge bloated network. So, and to include storage in there, content in there, I think it is obvious that you just can't do it. It's physically impossible, and that's why you need to have an extension of it, and a junk technology like a distributed file management system that will add on to it. And that's why blockchain has never taken off with file storage within itself.
And so, how much of ProximaX is actually happening off-chain?
Well, if you include the file storage as an off-chain thing, then that would be most part of it, in as far as storage is concerned, or in as far as total volume of data is concerned, whether it's transfer or value transfer data, or whether it's file storage. So, but if you look at it as an agglomeration, as I said, piecing together, they work hand in hand, then it becomes on-chain. On-chain in a way, right? But they work hand in hand. So it's rather hard for us now to say this is off-chain, that's on-chain, because both work in a peer-to-peer environment. And both sit hand in hand next to each other as a node, right? So I would say that it's still on-chain, right?
Yeah, there's certain elements that do end up being off-chain in terms of the actual storage that's happening on your computing device, for example, but then all the transactions, all the records of the movement of that data, and the rewards, of course, for holding on to the data, and all these things will go cross-chain.
Yep.
Very, very interesting. What would be kind of the parallels, I guess, between ProximaX and something like Sia Coin, or are you going much beyond that?
Okay, I think it's about execution of technologies. I'm an engineer, so as an engineer, we are here to solve problems and not to create rocket science where it's the first in the world sort of thing, and therefore it is highly ideal, and we'll create a blockchain from ground up. But as an engineer, what we'll do is we'll pick things up, right? Pick from the best of breed from the industry, put them together, and minimize and not reinvent the wheel, so that we can go out to market more quickly, and then spend more time in enabling those technologies for the benefit of the use of it, right? So that's where it's different. And being an engineer again, NEM is an established blockchain technology. It's good, and I have evaluated it and have concluded it even before ProximaX came into being that it's the right technology. And because it's the right technology to use, and because the distributed file management system using the IPFS is quite established as a technology as well. So it makes common sense for us to put things together and get going with it, rather than to say I'm going to reinvent a new file management system, I'm going to reinvent a new blockchain. That will take forever and a day, right?
Yeah, well, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And you see a lot of projects out there that are trying to create solutions for problems that we don't necessarily have,
right,
and that's highly problematic. Now, what about the privacy of my data? So if we're working with file storage, for example, and content delivery networks, that data is all going somewhere. So what are the security measures that are in place in order to maintain the privacy of that data?
Yeah, and that's where this is all going to be exciting, because what essentially happens is that number one, the data is sharded, broken into pieces like jigsaw puzzle. And what we do is we encrypt them, and we just basically throw it across the network and get stored in every node, right? So and that's already on that count, it is encrypted. It's almost impossible. Of course, it's theoretically possible to reassemble them, but it's practically almost impossible, at least for now, that anyone can see those data. And then again, now with the use of the cryptography science that NEM blockchain has, and the use of public and private key, is where it can be used for a scenario where it's permission based. So if I have the key, if I decide that I want to open up my files for the whole world to see, I'll just give the rights to access. And if I decide that I only let you see those files, then again I'll give you those rights. So there's rights for using cryptography science to allow us to store files or store data in there, and allow whoever to read and access those data, and that's where it's very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very interesting to see all this technology coming together. Now, obviously with NEM, we have the NEM public blockchain, then we have the Meijin private chain. Now, is ProximaX going to be working across both of those? Okay,
eventually we should see that, well, the Meijin 2.0 is Catapult, right?
Yeah.
So eventually we should see both the private chain and the public chain running off the Catapult technology. Catapult is basically a reinvention of the NEM architecture, as well as the software, right? And it's a great improvement on version 1. So if you look at it, ProximaX being what it is, we are not ready in as far as a few other things are concerned. Especially we are not ready with the public chain, which is the Catapult. Obviously we are ready with the existing NEM 1.0, but I think we are just as well in transition, waiting for what the Catapult is going to come as a public chain. So yeah, we are a little bit trapped, but we are working on NIS1. We can actually get things moving there, and we can have a solid distributed file management system. And as I said earlier, it's an agglomeration, so you can actually, it can be decoupled in terms of programming wise, in terms of, because we are creating a service layer. So it doesn't matter who actually access it, as long as they have the right SDK. So it doesn't matter whether we're using NIS1 or NIS1, or we are using the Catapult private chain, or but the distributed file management is there. So it doesn't really matter. It's
kind of agnostic in that
agnostic
way. Yeah.
So that's the approach now.
Excellent. Now I want to talk about ProximaX's consensus, because I thought this was really interesting. You're using 3 different levels of consensus here.
Right.
So we have proof of importance, which is, many of you may know from NEM, that's what NEM uses, proof of importance. We also have proof of storage, and then we have proof of bandwidth. So we have 3 consensuses coming together. How is that all working together, and why did you choose to go with a model where we have 3 different consensuses happening?
Well, this is a very interesting question. That's been, we've been looking at it quite seriously, and how we're going to actually cut them to pieces, how we're going to make them into one big consensus mechanism, right? So what we'll most probably look towards the whole thing is, because we need to weigh out the importance of storage bandwidth as opposed to proof of importance, right? So, I mean, if I have a node and I have plenty of bandwidth as well as plenty of disk space, I should not be, marginalizing as far as the overall proof of X is concerned, right? So I should have some sort of a, privilege in as far as mining is concerned or harvesting is concerned. So it is a balance of these three that we think are the main parameters or inputs into the consensus algorithm to arrive at a value whereby that shows where I stand as a as a participant in the network. So I think we have some sort of a breakthrough, hopefully, and we are now coming together, because at the end of the day, remember I was saying earlier, you can create dApps, distributed applications, right? And this sort of applications, right? They may have their own services, so they may have their own token economy. So, and actually, when you start looking at this, it becomes a bit complicated as well, because they could be running some sort of mosaic or their own asset. Yeah, you subscribe to that service and then you pay in that service, but then at the meantime you also need to pay the XEM or the XPX. It gets complicated. So it's a very complicated process, and we have been working on it, and we've got some models that we're going to work on, and hopefully we can actually define that in the next 6 months, right? So, but cool. Yeah, it's a challenge, I must admit.
Gosh, I can imagine. I mean, it's to have come out with NEM, which is such a robust blockchain, then bring the developments to NEM, and now you're like, well, that wasn't challenging enough. Time for the next challenge.
That's right. Yeah, in fact, that's the biggest challenge, and it itself is already a big part of development.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Now, in terms of projects that are actually going to be utilizing ProximaX's technology, has anyone put their hands up yet to say, I want to use ProximaX?
Well, there's been quite a number of people who want to use, and they come in many flavors, right? Some would be storage of document in respect of video content, and some would be looking at storage of traceability sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's a flavor of what we see in the everyday businesses that would like to use blockchain, and usually these are startups. But we would like to lay our hands on something like a land registry, where we could actually start working on it and create a bigger program or project out of it. But interestingly enough, it has also dawned on me that we should develop our own solutions as well, just to showcase and demonstrate that the fact that it works. So one of the things that we are doing, and we, in fact, I have a team that's specifically doing KYC, right? And what we would like to do is to enable KYC for anything, not just banking. It could be just a national ID registration, or you register for voting, for example, or pay your rates. So you need to register your name, your address, your age, whatever, right? So this is where the KYC becomes a more generic solution, where we can actually extend to include more complicated things like ICO, for example. You need KYC, right? So, and we want to be able to use this and then extend it further to include other service providers, where they have a huge repository of data about the person, or whether the person is of a good character or not, right?
Yeah.
So these are the things where we will have a use case for, right? And then one of the other things that we want to demonstrate creativity as well is to include things like an ERP system that could be put into the ProximaX platform, and to actually run your ERP on top of ProximaX. But of course, there is still this element of database that is required in an ERP system. And that's when we also want to extend that to include a distributed database solution as part of our suite of the platform.
Yeah.
So I think over time, a lot of little things will be adapted and put into the system. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. It's such a cool project. Anyone who hasn't heard about it yet, there's going to be a link down below, so make sure you go and click on there. Check out the ProximaX website. You can find out some more information about it. Lon, thank you so much for coming down to Wellington and telling me a bit about ProximaX.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
It's a nice city, you know.
That's it.
Look, the moon is rising. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yep. Thanks. Okay.
NEM!